Good afternoon, everyone. So, today we're going to have a discussion about the research title and the research introduction. In this discussion, you're going to learn how to write the research title, and you're also going to be provided with essential questions in writing the research introduction. So, without further ado, let us now start our presentation. So, writing the research title and the research introduction. So, before we start our uh, discussion, let us recall first what is a research variable. So, a research variable is any phenomena, any experience, or any feeling that a researcher deems important or worthy of being studied. So, a research variable is essentially the heart and soul of a research paper. So, a research variable is the source of knowledge or is the experience or is the thing that will be defined by the research study. So, in order to make sure that you have appropriate research variables or that if you in order to make sure that you will be able to write an appropriate research title, you need to be able to identify your research variable. And then in order to write a good research title, researchers must satisfy the internal and external criteria identified in the previous discussion. Essentially, it means that a researcher should have both the expertise and motivation in order to pursue the research study. Now, once you have identified your research variable, then you need to provide the respondents of the study. For most qualitative research designs, it utilizes human beings as the respondents of the study. Therefore, respondents or the quality of the respondents or a description of the respondents must be provided. However, this description should be general. It should not be very specific. Now, if you're going to deal with humans, then it is important to include the location of the study. That means that if you're going to include respondents, then you should also provide the research locale or the research environment. This is important because uh, there's a characteristic in human beings wherein the geographical location will affect their perspective. So, different people from different places have different ideas about the world around them. That is why if you have human beings in your research, then it is important to provide a brief description about them and the location that they are located. So in order to formulate a good research title, you need to make sure that you have your research variable, and then you need to include the respondents of the study and the location of the study. Now, always remember that if you have human beings as part of your research, it is necessary to both include the respondents and the location. And since most qualitative research designs will employ human beings because, well, qualitative research is the best form of research in order to understand the human experience. So here are some examples of how you can write or how you can formulate a great research title with all three components involved. So first, identify the variable. In this title, the variable is the grooming techniques. Then, select the respondents. In this research title, the respondents are selected female groomers. Now, the type of groomers are the selected female groomers. Here does not mean there's no more qualifications here. They are described generally. So it is not described as selected female groomers age 29 to 30, 29 to 49. Selected female groomers who have experience of 15 to 20 years. Essentially, they are just described generally. And the location. So the location is also described generally. So there is no specific place. Rather, the whole part of uh, Cebu is described. So here's another example also. So the study techniques of selected achievers enrolled in Cebu Doctors University Senior High School. So the variable is the study technique. The respondents are selective achievers. The respondents are described generally. The location, although it is specific, but uh, there is no much more specific definitions. It is bounded essentially by just the location. So, anhara siya kutob. Another example is this, the online teaching strategy of selected teachers in Cebu Doctors University Senior High School. So the variable is the online teaching strategy. The respondents are selected teachers. The location is CDU Senior High School. So both the respondents and the location will be able to provide you with a limitation. Essentially, that means that your research is only applicable to those respondents and to that location. So here is an example with multiple variable. So essentially, the goal of this research study is to identify the effect of the academic experience of a teacher on their student rating. So the respondents are the teachers, and the location is Cebu Doctors University Senior High School. Now, why is it that the respondents are only the teachers? Because it is the teacher's rating, and it is their rating based from the student's perspective that will be used in the study. So again, if you observe the respondents, it is stated generally. And if you look at the location, it is also described or it is also stated generally. So the goal of this study is to use the academic experience of the teacher and then apply the appropriate statistical treatment and establish a relationship to the student's rating of the teacher. Okay? So medyo malibog yan mo sa word niya student rating. The student rating here is essentially the rating given by the students to the teacher. So at the end of the day, it is still their rating, but it is based on the student's perspective. So here is another example. The financial literacy and liquid assets of selected politicians in the province of Cebu. So from this example, you have two variables, financial literacy and liquid assets. So the respondents here are selected politicians and the location is the province of Cebu. So respondents, the quality of respondents are not described specifically. They are simply described as selected politicians. They can be councilors, mayors, or any other type of politicians as long as they are politicians. In the province of Cebu, the specific location or the location is not bounded to one city or one municipality. So you can have politicians from Daanbantayan, Bogo, Danao, Lapu-Lapu, Mandaue, Compostela, Talisay, Minglanilla, Naga, Karkar, so on and so forth. Now that you know how to formulate a research title, it is the next step that you have to do is to write a research introduction. Now, the research introduction serves as a justification for the research title. The research title is a summary of the overall research. The research title justifies what justifies the researcher's choice of conducting a research with that research title or conducting a research for those specific variables. So essentially, the research introduction is the justification. So the research introduction has six components. The first component is the rationale. The rationale is the reasoning behind the researcher's decision to pursue the research topic. So the essential question associated to the rationale is this. What is the reason behind the researcher's decision to pursue this study? By answering this question, a researcher can, can provide a justification of his or her choice of conducting the research. So each of these questions can be answered with a singular paragraph. That paragraph will compose the research introduction. So the next component is the setting of the study. Again, remember that in qualitative research or any research that involves human beings, it is important to establish the setting. The setting can mean two things. The setting can mean the current idea, or the setting can mean the geographical location. So for most of the time, for qualitative research, the setting will mean or will correspond to the general location of the study. So it will answer the question, where will the study be conducted and how relevant is the location to the research? So by looking at that question, I can see that it is also a justification. It is a justification of why the researcher chose to conduct the study to that specific location. By answering this question, the researcher describes the location where the research is conducted. The next component is the basic literature foundation of the study. This component provides a definition for the variables of the study. Essentially, it gives a definition for the phenomena, the experience that you want to know more about. So in order to establish the basic literature foundation, researchers need to answer this question. What do the researchers know about the variables identified in the study? By answering this question, the researcher will be able to define the variables using the appropriate literature, and then this literature should be from valid sources. That means that you cannot simply cite Wikipedia articles or Google search engine definitions. You need to look for valid sources in order to establish the basic literature foundation of the study. Now that you have defined the basic literature foundation, the next step is to provide the seriousness of the study. Now, the difference between the seriousness of the study and the rationale is that the rationale is the personal justification. The seriousness of the study establishes the importance of the study to the general population. So the seriousness of the study can be established by answering this question. Why is there a need to study this variable or topic? By answering that question, the researcher will be able to state the importance of the finding a solution, or explaining the variables identified or the relationship of the variables. Essentially, by establishing the seriousness of the study, the outcome or the benefit of the study towards the general population will be established. Now, always remember that when you establish the seriousness of the topic or of the study, you will be able to specify the gravity, you'll be able to state the magnitude or the intensity of the research. The next step is the objective of the research. So the objective of the research can be used as a segue towards the next component of Chapter 1, which is the general problem statement. So it states the outcome of the study based on the objectives stated. So this can be established by answering the question, what is the general objective of the research? Essentially, what is the outcome of the study? This outcome will be used in formulating the general problem statement. Once you have established the objective of the study, then you'll be able to establish the overall purpose. Essentially, the general, essentially the objective of the study states the outcome. The purpose is the overall purpose of the research will state how it will contribute to the study. In some instances, both the objective of the study and the general purpose are mixed together. But in order to provide a clear justification, it is best to simply state the general objective and then the overall purpose. So that is the end of our slide. So always remember that when you think of a research, the goal is to provide or is to give us a general idea of the world around us, or in the goal is to essentially give us a better understanding of the world around us. So the research title and then the research introduction both satisfies this component. The research title is the general summary. By reading the research title, you'll be able to get an idea of what the research introduction is, the justification provided by the researcher in order to justify the research title. Thank you. And you may proceed to the next activity.